When I was 10, I once got a perfect score on a school math competition. I was so excited I ran home, breathless, holding the certificate in my tiny hands like it was a Nobel Prize. I remember shoving it at my mom while she was making dinner, expecting the kind of praise kids crave. She glanced at it, nodded, and then asked if I'd seen my brother's new soccer cleats. That moment stayed with me longer than I realized. My name's Joel. I'm 29 now. And this is the story of how my family forgot the most important day of my life. Not just forgot, dismissed it like it was nothing. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't have predicted, was that everything they ignored would explode in their faces in a way none of us would come back from. Growing up, I was the easy kid. Quiet. Responsible. The one who could be left alone with a box of Legos for hours and never make a mess. My younger brother, Adam, was the golden child. Loud, charming, athletic. He could fail a class, and it was, he's just not a test taker. I could get straight A's, and it was, well, that's what we expect from you, Joel. At some point, I stopped trying to impress them. You can only scream into a void for so long before you give up and just go quiet. Still, I love them. Or maybe I just wanted to be loved. Even as an adult, I kept giving them chances. I called home regularly, visited every few months even though I lived out of state. I remembered birthdays, sent cards, asked about Adam's games, even when I knew they'd never once asked about my career. I'm a documentary editor, by the way. Nothing flashy, but I've worked on a few Netflix and Hulu projects. Not that they ever watched any of them. I told them once I'd been nominated for an editing award. Mom blinked and said, "That's nice, sweetie." Adam's team made it to regionals. Adam was always the center of gravity in our family. His soccer games were sacred. I'm not exaggerating. One time we had a relative's funeral. My dad left the wake early to make it to Adam's 1 p.m. kickoff. When I had my college graduation, they came but left during the lunch reception because Adam had training. They missed my speech. I was class valedictorian, so I started drawing boundaries. Quietly, subtly, I stopped sharing big wins with them. When I got my first apartment, I didn't tell them until a week later. When one of my projects trended on YouTube, I never brought it up. I kept my expectations low. But then I met Elise. Elise is everything I'm not. Warm, bubbly, unapologetically emotional. She's the kind of person who cries at strangers' wedding videos and makes friends in grocery store lines. We met while I was editing a piece on environmental conservation. She was a consultant on the project. She had a calming presence and an annoying habit of calling me out when I tried to downplay myself. Within a year, I knew I wanted to marry her. The proposal was simple. Just the two of us on a lakeside hike, a camera hidden in my backpack, and a ring I'd carried around for 3 weeks because I couldn't find the perfect moment. When I finally asked, she laughed through her tears and told me she'd been waiting for me to catch up. She'd already told her mom it was happening. Her family welcomed me with open arms. Her dad even hugged me, something my own father hasn't done since I was a teenager. Planning the wedding wasn't exactly a walk in the park. Elise wanted something small and intimate. I wanted that too. Neither of us cared for huge venues or fancy catering, but we did want it to be meaningful. We set the date 8 months out, just enough time to get everything in order without dragging it out. I told my parents the news over the phone. I remember the silence after I said, "We're getting married." A beat too long. Then my mom said, "Oh, that's wonderful, honey. When's the date?" I gave it to her, excited. There was another pause. "Oh, that's the same weekend as Adam's championship match." I blinked. "Okay, but I mean it's 8 months from now. That's plenty of time, right?" "Joel," my dad chimed in, "you know how important this season is for Adam. His coach said college scouts will be there. I'm not asking you to choose a random game over my wedding. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event. We'll figure it out," Mom said quickly, but it felt like a brush-off. Like she was already preparing the excuse in her head. Elise was sitting beside me during the call. When I hung up, she didn't say anything at first. Then she asked, "Do you think they'll come?" I gave her the only answer I could. I hope so. Over the next few months, things got weirder. I'd text my mom with updates. Venue booked, florist found, Elise's dress was stunning, and get one-word replies. Dad didn't respond at all. Meanwhile, I'd hear through my cousin that my parents were traveling every other weekend for Adam's away games. My cousin even joked, "Is your brother the next Ronaldo or something?" At our engagement party, hosted by Elise's parents, my family didn't show. No call, no message. Just a text from Mom the next day saying, "Sorry, Things got busy this weekend. Hope it went well. I started to spiral a bit. Was I overreacting? Being dramatic? Elise told me to talk to them directly. So I did. I called Mom one afternoon and just laid it all out. I feel like you're not excited. Like you're not even planning on being there. She gave a long sigh. Joel, weddings aren't everything. We went to yours and Adam's kindergarten graduations. We've supported you both equally. That was so wild I had to laugh. Equally? Mom, you left my college graduation early for one of Adam's scrimmages. It wasn't a scrimmage. It was a team dinner. Even worse. I think you're being unfair. And selfish. Selfish. That word cut deep. I'd spent my entire life folding myself into whatever shape they needed. Quiet, understanding, low maintenance. I swallowed the rest of the conversation. It wasn't worth it. Not then. A week before the wedding, I tried one last time. I called both of them, conference style. Told them again how much it meant. How I'd grown up watching them put Adam first. And how for once, I needed them to show up for me. I said it plainly. This is the biggest day of my life. If you miss it for a soccer game, I'll take that as the answer to every question I've ever had. They laughed. My mom actually laughed. Joel, don't be so dramatic. It's not like it's your funeral. And then Dad said, we'll see what we can do. But Adam's worked really hard. I stared at the wall for a long time after that. Elise came in, saw my face, and didn't even ask. She just held me. And then the wedding day came. We stood beneath an old oak tree, surrounded by Elise's smiling family and a few of our closest friends. I scanned the crowd before the ceremony. Once. Twice. My parents weren't there. Adam wasn't there. No message. No text. Nothing. But Elise's mom cried. Her dad beamed at me like I was already his son. And the photographer caught it all. The raw joy, the sunlight in Elise's veil, the way her eyes lit up when we kissed. I posted a few pictures online later that night. Nothing fancy. Just a caption, married the love of my life today. By morning, the post had gone viral. Not millions viral, but enough. Enough that friends of friends were sharing it. Enough that Elise's extended relatives were commenting, tagging others, sending congratulations. And then one comment from someone I didn't know. Wait, where's the groom's family? That was the spark. The fire that followed. Well, let's just say it burned hotter than I expected. And it hadn't even reached my father, yet. I didn't respond to any of the comments that first day. I told myself it didn't matter. That the people who did show up were the only ones who mattered. Elise was radiant. Our friends were glowing. The air still smelled like lavender from the garden Elise's mom insisted we use. But that single comment, where's the groom's family, burrowed into my brain like a splinter. I wasn't even the one who showed it to my parents. My aunt, my dad's sister, had been quietly following along online. She texted me later that afternoon, clearly stunned. Joel, was this today? You didn't tell them? I stared at her message, my stomach in knots. I told them. 8 months ago. I reminded them 3 times. I didn't hear back from her, but I imagined the rest. I imagined her calling my father. I imagined the fight. My family is many things. Communicative isn't one of them. But when gossip is in the air, they're like bloodhounds. 3 days after the wedding, I finally got a call. From my dad. He sounded tired. Joel, he said, voice low. Why didn't you tell me the wedding was that weekend? I was silent for a second. I could feel Elise watching me from across the room. I did tell you. More than once. No, you said it was sometime in May. You never said the 14th. Dad, I have the texts. He didn't respond. Just breathed. Mom knew. I added, letting the words hang like smoke. She confirmed it. She laughed about it, remember? The silence that followed wasn't defensive. It was still. I didn't know, he repeated again. But if your mother did, we're going to have a problem. Something shifted in that moment. The ground underneath my family tilted. My dad wasn't yelling. He wasn't accusing. He sounded betrayed. Just like me. And for the first time in a long, long time, I realized something. My mother had manipulated him, too. And that wasn't the end of it. Not even close. Because what came next, the fallout, the layers of buried truth, the real reason behind their absence, that's when everything broke open. But I'm getting ahead of myself. 2 days after the phone call, my dad texted me. It was a screenshot. A Facebook post from my mom. So proud of Adam for scoring the winning goal this weekend. What a memory. Some moments you never forget. Underneath was a photo. The whole family was there. My mom, my dad, my brother, 2 cousins, even my grandmother in a lawn chair. Saturday, May 14th. The same day as our wedding. I read the caption again. Some moments you never forget. Something inside me cracked. Not like a clean break. It splintered. I showed the photo to Elise. She didn't say a word. Just sat on the couch, hand over her mouth. I think she knew I needed to be the one to speak first, but I couldn't. My throat felt tight. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even breathe for a full minute. I just stared. Then she said, "You should show her the pictures." So I did. I messaged my mom that evening. No long explanation. No guilt trip. Just 3 high-resolution wedding photos. Me and Elise. The garden. Her family huddled around us, smiling. No caption. Just the images. She read the message. No response. An hour later, I checked again. Still nothing. Then I got a phone call. From Adam. "Dude, what is your problem?" he barked. "My problem. You couldn't just be chill for once? You had to post your wedding all over the internet and make mom look bad." I blinked, stunned. "Adam, are you serious right now?" "She's getting torn apart in the comments, Joel. Our family is catching heat because you decided to play the victim." "I am the victim." "Of what? A scheduling conflict?" "I lost it." "You knew, Adam. You knew it was that weekend." "So what?" he said. "You picked a weekend you knew was important for me, and then you got mad that I didn't cancel my game?" "My wedding," I snapped. "It was my wedding, Adam. You could have moved it." The sheer arrogance in his voice. It wasn't even arrogance. It was certainty. Like I was supposed to plan my entire marriage around his sports schedule. Like I was a satellite orbiting his world. "I hope the scouts saw your goal," I said flatly. "Because you missed the only thing that mattered to me." He hung up. I didn't tell Elise about that call. Not right away. I couldn't. I felt too raw. Too stupid. And then, 2 days later, it got worse. My cousin Sarah, bless her, called me sobbing. She'd been scrolling through Facebook and found a private group message between my mom, 2 aunts, and a few family members. One of them had screenshotted it and shared it with her. And Sarah, God bless her twice, sent it to me. It was dated 5 months ago. "Joel says the wedding is May 14th. Adam has a game that weekend, so we obviously can't go. I don't want him making a scene about it. Let's all agree to say we thought it was the week after if it comes up." Another message from one of my aunts. "Maybe tell him you never got the invitation." Could work. And another. "It's not like he's close to us anyway. Just Elise's family and some artsy coworkers." I read those messages over and over, like some part of me hoped the words would rearrange themselves into something less cruel. They never did. I called my dad. Sent him the screenshots. He didn't pick up. An hour later, I got a message from him. "I'm staying at a hotel for a few nights." That was all it said. No explanation. No context. But I knew. And then the phone rang again. It was my grandmother. 83 years old. Rarely calls anyone. She didn't even say hello. Just launched into it. "Joel, what in God's name is going on? Your mother's in a state. Says your father's threatening divorce. Says you're spreading lies about the family online." I felt something inside me harden. "They're not lies," I said. "Did you know they skipped my wedding?" A pause. "I thought it was a small courthouse thing." "Because that's what she told you." Silence again. "Joel, she said you didn't invite them." I almost laughed. "I sent invitations. I called. I begged." She lied. To everyone. "I don't know what to believe anymore," she whispered. "Believe the photos," I said. "Believe the silence." The call ended. I felt numb. Elise sat beside me, her hand in mine. "They're unraveling," she said softly. I nodded. She made a choice. And now everyone sees it. But I hadn't seen it all. Not yet. A week after the wedding, my father showed up. Unannounced. No suitcase, no smile. Just stood at our door, hat in hand, eyes bloodshot. I let him in. Elise gave him a polite nod, but stayed upstairs. He sat on our couch like he wasn't sure he deserved to. "I didn't know," he said again. "You keep saying that." "I say it because it's true. I told you." "I know. But she told me you changed the date. That the invitation must have been lost. That you were being vague on purpose. She made it sound like you didn't want us there." I stared at him. "Do you believe her now?" He shook his head slowly. "No, I don't." I didn't respond. He looked around the room. His eyes lingered on a wedding photo on our mantel. He reached for it, then stopped himself. "I missed this," he said, voice breaking. "And I'll never forgive myself." I didn't have it in me to comfort him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But then he said something I'll never forget. "If she really did what you say she did, we're done." And that's when I realized something deeper than the betrayal. This wasn't just about me. My mother's manipulation hadn't been aimed solely at me. It had warped our entire family. She'd built a world around Adam, weaponized loyalty, rewrote narratives, controlled the flow of information. And now? Now it was all falling apart. But the breaking point didn't come until a week later, when I found out what my mom had planned next. And that's when the real storm hit. I didn't expect things to get quieter after my dad's visit. I thought there'd be yelling, confrontations, tearful apologies, or dramatic phone calls. But there was just silence. A thick, stifling silence. Like my family had collectively pressed pause on reality, hoping if they waited long enough, I'd let this all go. That I'd be the one to smooth things over, like I always had. That I'd downplay the pain and let them keep rewriting the story, turning a deliberate betrayal into a harmless misunderstanding. But I didn't reach out. Not this time. And they didn't either. Instead, the first sign that my mother hadn't moved on came from an unexpected place. Elisa's uncle, Mark. Mark's a blunt, no-nonsense kind of guy. Served in the Navy, now runs a woodworking shop and makes jokes so dry they might catch fire in the sun. We'd bonded during the wedding planning over our mutual love of silence and espresso. He wasn't the kind of man to call just to gossip, which is why his message raised every hair on my neck. Hey kid, you might want to talk to your HR department. Someone's been sniffing around, asking weird questions. I called him immediately. He told me a woman had reached out to the consulting firm Elise worked with, claimed to be fact-checking for an article. She asked if Elise's company was affiliated with any international political groups, and if there was any financial misconduct related to a recent environmental doc we'd both worked on. She gave a fake name, but Mark recognized her voice. He said, "It was your mother, Joel. I'd bet my shop on it." I felt my stomach twist. I couldn't believe it. No, scratch that. I did believe it. I just didn't want to. She called your company pretending to be a reporter? Not just mine, he said. She called Elise's direct supervisor. I only found out because they thought it was strange and mentioned it over coffee. That night, I sat on the couch with Elise, numb, while she read through the email summary Mark had forwarded. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she looked up and said, "Joel, this was meant to hurt us." And I knew. This wasn't just petty anymore. This was sabotage. I confronted my dad. I sent him a text first, asking if he had any idea what Mom had been doing. He called within 2 minutes. "Joel, I'm sorry," he said before I even picked up. I was quiet. She told me she was going to set the record straight. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't think she'd go this far. Why would she try to ruin my job? I asked, voice low. I don't know. Maybe she thought you'd cave. That she could scare you into staying quiet. She's always been afraid of public shame. She lied, Dad. She planned this. Months ago, she turned the whole family against me and then tried to make Elise and I look like liars online. I'm not defending her, he said quickly. I'm done doing that. So what now? I asked. He didn't answer. Not really. Just said he was looking for a lawyer. That he didn't recognize the woman he married anymore. That if she'd truly tried to hurt my career, it was over. I didn't feel satisfied. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt empty. The next few weeks blurred together. Elise kept me grounded. She made tea in the mornings and started playing our wedding playlist during breakfast to remind us of the good. We framed the best wedding photos and hung them in our hallway. We started walking in the evenings. Sometimes we didn't even talk. We just walked. But deep down, I knew I wasn't okay. Because when your own mother tries to destroy your life, it doesn't just sting, it unroots something. You start questioning your memories, your judgment, yourself. Was I blind? Was I too eager to believe the best in people who had shown me, over and over, how little I mattered? I stopped checking my phone. I muted the family group chat, though it had gone eerily quiet anyway. Elisa's parents invited us over every Sunday for dinner, and while I loved them, I also felt like an orphan pretending to have a family. I hit rock bottom 2 weeks later when I received a letter. It wasn't from my mom, not from my dad. It was from my grandmother. It was handwritten in a wobbly scrawl, the ink smudged in places like she'd been crying as she wrote. Dear Joel, I want you to know something. I didn't know the truth. I didn't know they were lying. Your mother told us you were being difficult, that you didn't want a big wedding, that you told her not to come. I believed her. I'm ashamed of that. I always thought I was close to you, but I see now that I chose to believe the louder voice. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed to tell you I'm sorry. and I saw the photos. You looked so happy. So sure. Please know that I'm proud of you. I always have been. Love. Grandma. I read it 3 times before I started crying. Not the quiet kind. Not the single tear down the cheek like in the movies. The gut-wrenching, body-shaking kind that comes from years of swallowing hurt you never had the words for. That night, Elise held me while I cried into her shoulder, and something shifted. I realized I'd been waiting for my family to rescue me from the pain they'd caused. But they never would. I had to rescue myself. So I started small. I replied to my grandmother's letter. I thanked her for her words. I told her I forgave her and hoped to see her soon. Then I called my cousin Sarah, the one who'd sent me the screenshots. We had lunch downtown, and for the first time in months, I laughed. She filled me in on the family gossip. My mom was furious, saying I was trying to destroy her reputation, and that my dad had betrayed her. My aunts were divided. One had quietly messaged Elise to say she was sorry. The other unfriended me on Facebook. My mom was still denying she'd made the calls to Elise's company, but apparently she'd been caught in another lie. She told my aunt she hadn't known the wedding date, and that same aunt remembered being invited to it explicitly in a group email. Things were fracturing. Fast. But for the first time, I didn't feel like the broken one. I poured myself into work. I picked up a freelance docuseries project about forgotten World War II photographers. Long days of editing, slow piano soundtracks, and dusty old black and white footage. There was something comforting about working on stories of people who'd been ignored and overlooked. It felt personal. I started going to therapy again. Elise encouraged me. At first, I was hesitant. What if it didn't help? What if digging it all up made it worse? But the first session hit me like a freight train. Not because of anything dramatic. Just a simple question. When did you first learn your needs weren't important? I didn't have an answer, but I knew I'd been living under that belief for most of my life. Over time, I started shedding it. Slowly, like peeling off an old, suffocating coat I didn't know I'd been wearing. I reached out to people I'd distanced myself from, college friends, a few old coworkers. I let people in again. I even joined Elise in one of her volunteer projects, a local youth media program, helping high school kids learn video editing. It was strange, being looked up to, but it also healed something. My confidence came back. My laughter came back. And one afternoon, sitting in a sunny cafe with Elise, I got an email. From Netflix. They wanted to feature one of the documentaries I'd worked on in a spotlight series. They called it Hidden Visionaries, and they wanted to interview me. I sat there in stunned silence, rereading the message. Elise looked at me, grinning. What? I showed her. She shrieked so loudly the couple next to us jumped. We celebrated that night. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was trying to outrun the past. I felt like I was walking towards something. Something I'd built. The following week, I posted about it on social media. Just a simple announcement, with a clip of the documentary trailer. The comments came pouring in. Congratulations. Pride. Surprise. And then, buried in the middle, a comment from someone I hadn't heard from in a long, long time. My mom. Proud of you. Wish we could have been there from the start. No apology. No ownership. Just a vague, passive admission buried under the guise of praise. I stared at the comment for a long time. And then I deleted it. Not out of anger. Out of peace. Because I didn't need her to be there anymore. I'd already risen without her. But the real turning point, the moment where everything I'd built collided with everything she tried to destroy, was still to come. And when it came, it didn't just end the fight. It exposed everything. When the Netflix feature went live, it changed everything. Not just my career. Though yes, I started getting cold calls from producers, journalists, even a university professor who wanted me to guest lecture. But it changed me. Something about seeing my name in those credits, hearing my voice in the behind-the-scenes interviews, and watching the doc trend in the most-watched list for 3 straight days made everything else finally click into place. I wasn't the forgotten son anymore. I wasn't the backup plan. I wasn't the one who had to beg to be seen. I was seen. Fully. Publicly. Permanently. And she saw it too. Because not even a week after the documentary blew up, I got an email. It wasn't from my mom. Not directly. It was from her church group's leader, someone I'd only met once, years ago, who always smelled like lemon-scented candles and wore necklaces with giant crosses. Hi Joel. I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to say how inspiring your documentary was. Our entire fellowship watched it together during our Sunday evening film night. Truly beautiful work. Your mother is so proud. She told us all how she always knew you'd do something special. We'd love to have you come speak at one of our gatherings soon. I read it twice, then again, just to be sure I wasn't misreading it. My mother, the same woman who tried to sabotage my job, who coordinated a cover-up to miss my wedding, who let me believe for years that I was second best, was now parading around my success like she'd built it herself. And that's when I realized, this wasn't over. Not really. See, I could have ignored it. Could have blocked the email, thrown my phone across the room, and continued living in peace. But something shifted in me that day. It wasn't bitterness. It wasn't spite. It was clarity. She had spent years rewriting the narrative of our family. She painted herself as the doting mother, Adam as the golden boy, and me, the quiet, inconvenient one, as forgettable. And now that the world had acknowledged me, now that strangers were applauding my work, she was trying to jump back in like she'd been part of the journey. It made my skin crawl. But more than that, it gave me an idea. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to yell or call her out in the middle of a family dinner or write some long email detailing every wound she ever left on my back. No, I was going to do something better, something cleaner. It started with a list. I wrote down everyone she had lied to, everyone she had manipulated during the wedding fallout. My grandmother, my aunts, Adam, even some family friends she weaponized to spread her version of the story. I listed the people she'd painted me as difficult too, the ones she had told I didn't invite them or chose a private wedding to avoid family drama. Then I made a second list. Everyone she respected, everyone she wanted approval from, church leaders, former coworkers, her little Facebook crafting group that commented on each other's scrapbook photos and shared Bible quotes over minion memes. Because here's what I learned from therapy and 6 months of hard-earned clarity. People like my mother don't just crave control, they crave admiration. They survive on the perception of being the good one. And the moment you take that away, their world starts to collapse. So I started planning. The Netflix buzz was still high, so I capitalized on it. I agreed to do a podcast interview, one hosted by a filmmaker who loved family-centric narratives and had a huge following. I knew exactly what I was doing. During the interview, she asked me about support systems, about what helped me keep going during the toughest moments of my career. And I answered, carefully. I had to learn that sometimes your real family isn't the one you're born into. It's the one that shows up, the one that celebrates you, not just tolerates you. I got married recently, and my in-laws have been incredible, truly. But my side of the family didn't attend. It was a choice they made, and I've made peace with that. The host leaned in. Wait, they chose not to come. I nodded. Yeah, it was hard, but it taught me something valuable. You can't force people to care. You just have to recognize when they don't and stop begging for crumbs. I didn't say names. I didn't need to. The podcast went viral. Clips were shared across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Stop Begging for Crumbs became a trending audio. People stitched it with their own family stories. It resonated with thousands, possibly millions. And my mom? She was fuming. I found out through my cousin Sarah, who texted me screenshots from our mom's now private Facebook page. How dare he twist the truth like this? We always supported him in our own way. Not every parent has to attend a wedding to prove love, but she wasn't denying it anymore. She was defending it. And that was all I needed. Because next came the fundraiser. Elise had been helping her local youth media nonprofit for a while now. They were low on funds and needed a new editing lab. I offered to donate equipment, and then, impulsively, I offered to sponsor the entire program. We renamed it the Joel Wexler Initiative for Young Storytellers. They wanted to announce it publicly. Press release, launch event, the works. I agreed, but only under one condition. I got to write the official donor letter. And I did. I was fortunate enough to find my voice in the world of storytelling. But I didn't always feel heard. In fact, for much of my life, I felt invisible, even to the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. This program exists because young voices matter. Their stories deserve to be heard before the world tells them they're too quiet, too weird, too inconvenient. I dedicate this initiative to the families we build when our birth families fall short. It hit hard. It made headlines in local news. Elise's parents cried when they read it. And then, a week later, the invitation came. From the church group leader. Again, we'd love to have you speak. The Women's Fellowship is planning a celebration for your mother's birthday. She's such a shining light in our community. We thought it would be lovely if her son, the successful filmmaker, could surprise her with a few words of appreciation. I stared at that email for a long, long time. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded it to Sarah. "Would you do me a favor?" I asked. "Sure," she replied. "Make sure they film the event." She didn't ask why, and I didn't explain. Because I wasn't going. But something else was. See, while all this was happening, my father had been quietly sorting through boxes in storage. He'd moved out of the house months ago, but he hadn't yet taken everything. He told me he wasn't ready. Until now. He found an old camcorder in one of the boxes. Tucked in the back was a mini DV tape labeled Joel's 8th birthday. Curious, he plugged it into a converter and watched it on his laptop. And what he found broke him. It wasn't footage of a birthday party. It was a private recording, an argument between my parents, forgotten and taped over by accident. The audio was grainy, but you could hear my mom's voice, sharp and cruel. "He's not like Adam. He's not special. He's just there." And then my dad's voice, tired, hurt. "He's your son." So? I didn't ask for two. My father didn't tell me about the tape right away. He sat with it, watched it 3 times. Then he sent it to me. No message, no subject line, just the file. I watched it alone. Then I watched it again with Elise. And I knew what I had to do. I was done begging. Now, I was going to expose her. Not with hate. Not with a public takedown or dramatic confrontation. I was going to let her own words speak for themselves. But it had to be the right moment. The right stage. So I waited. And planned. And when the opportunity came, I was ready. 2 months after I received the tape, the one where my mother said she didn't ask for 2 sons, I stood in the back of a church banquet hall with a USB drive in my jacket pocket and Elise's fingers resting gently on my wrist. The room was dressed in pale pinks and lavender balloons. A banner read, "Happy 60th, Diane," in gold cursive letters. Card tables were arranged around a makeshift stage, where a microphone stood waiting. My mother, Diane, stood near the center, surrounded by women in floral blouses and wide smiles, soaking in the compliments like a sponge left too long in dishwater. She looked radiant in the way only people do when they believe they've won. I wasn't supposed to be there. At least, not personally. When I'd received the invitation to her birthday event, clearly meant as a PR opportunity to reclaim her social standing, I said nothing. But through Sarah, who was now fully on my side, I'd learned they were planning a video montage. Family memories. Old home movies. Exactly what I was counting on. Sarah offered to help. She volunteered to gather footage for the slideshow and coordinated with the church's AV team under the guise of being my mother's niece and a tech-savvy angel. It didn't take much convincing. Everyone loved Sarah, and no one in that room knew the full story, not yet. I arrived quietly, an hour into the event, dressed in muted colors and wearing a hat pulled low. Elise walked beside me, keeping her expression unreadable. My dad wasn't there. He'd declined the invite, citing conflicting appointments, which was code for, "I can't fake it anymore." My mother didn't see me. She was too busy laughing, too busy basking in the compliments about her son, the filmmaker, and how she'd always believed in him, how he must have gotten his talent from you, how proud she must be. I let her talk. I let her smile. I let her believe. Until the lights dimmed. Someone took the mic. "We're going to play a little video montage for Diane. Some memories from over the years. From birthdays, holidays, and family moments we all treasure." There was applause. A few phone cameras raised. And the screen flickered to life. It began innocently. My baby photos, Adam's soccer highlights, grainy clips of us opening Christmas presents in footy pajamas. My mother gasped and covered her mouth, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. But then the sound shifted. The next clip was darker, both visually and tonally. The timestamp read August 2002. The shaky footage of my 8th birthday ended, and static filled the screen. Then, voices. "He's not like Adam. He's not special. He's just there." The room fell still. You could have heard a pin drop. "He's your son." So? I didn't ask for 2. My mother's face froze. At first, people thought it was part of the video. Maybe a joke. An outtake. But then it became clear. There was no music. No laughter. Just 2 people arguing. Her voice. Young. Sharp. Unmistakably hers. And my father's voice, trying to defend me. He's sensitive. He tries. You don't see it because you're too busy bragging about Adam. Oh, please. One of them's going to make us proud. The other will probably end up crying in a corner somewhere. The gasps came then, slowly, rippling through the room like an echo underwater. The clip ended. Static again. And then the screen faded to black. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. I stepped forward, pulled the hat from my head, walked slowly to the front, heart pounding but hands steady. I took the microphone as my mother turned toward me, her face pale, her mouth slightly open, frozen in shock. Some people recognized me immediately. Others took a moment. But within seconds, the whispers began. I took a breath. Hi, I'm Joel, Diane's son. More murmurs. One woman clutched her chest. I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but since my mother's been sharing my story with so many of you lately, claiming credit for a life she actively tried to sabotage, I thought it was only fair to let you hear a different version. My mom opened her mouth. I held up a finger. Calm. Controlled. Don't. You've said enough. I turned back to the room. I was told my mother didn't come to my wedding because of a scheduling conflict, that she supported me in her own way, that I was overreacting. I paused. I believed that for a long time. I even believed it when she tried to damage my career behind the scenes. When she called my job pretending to be a reporter. When she told our family I didn't invite them. I believed her lies because, like most kids, I wanted to believe my mother loved me, that I mattered. I glanced down, letting the silence stretch. But I don't believe it anymore. Because love doesn't look like sabotage. It doesn't sound like that tape. And it sure doesn't skip your wedding to attend a soccer game. A man near the front shifted uncomfortably. A woman beside him put a hand over her mouth. My mother tried again. Joel, please, this isn't the time. Isn't it? I turned to face her directly. You made my wedding about you. You made my success about you. You twisted every moment I've ever had into something you could claim. And now you want sympathy because I finally stopped letting you rewrite the narrative? Her eyes filled with tears. I am proud of you, she whispered, voice trembling. You're proud now, I said. Now that strangers are clapping. I took a final breath. You taught me that people only love you if you make it easy. But I'm done making it easy. I'm done apologizing for needing love you never wanted to give. I stepped back, handed the mic to Sarah. She nodded, lips tight, and I walked out. I didn't look back. Elise was waiting outside the doors. Her eyes were shining, but she didn't say a word. She just took my hand, and we walked out into the cool evening, the sounds of shocked murmurs trailing behind us. Later, I heard that my mother sat down and didn't speak for the rest of the night. Some people left early. Others stayed and awkwardly picked at slices of cake. The church group leader sent a frantic email 2 days later, apologizing and saying she had no idea about the deeper context. The crafting ladies group, her pride and joy, quietly removed her as admin. My aunt stopped returning her calls. And Adam? He called me. Just once. He didn't yell. Didn't accuse. He just said, "You nuked her, man." I replied. She lit the fuse. He hung up. We haven't spoken since. As for my dad, he finally filed the divorce papers. He sent me a quiet message after. Thank you for giving me the strength. And Grandma? She came to visit. Brought lemon cookies and hugged me so hard I almost cried again. We didn't talk about the video. We didn't need to. Because some things, once seen, can't be unseen. And me? I kept rising. I finished another documentary. Got invited to speak at a film festival. Elise and I traveled to Italy for our belated honeymoon. I finally gave that guest lecture at the university. And every time someone asked me about my success, I told them the truth. It didn't come from talent alone. It came from silence. From being overlooked. From learning how to listen so closely that I could see what others missed. It came from knowing how it feels to be forgotten and deciding I'd never forget myself again. My mother tried to erase me from her story, so I wrote my own. And this time, it's permanent.